All right, let's see what we got here. So let's close that out because I'm gonna get feedback if I don't. We are live now. Hello, everybody. Welcome, welcome, welcome to the MiC Aspires class. I do want to welcome Tanisha Martin, who is going to be our speaker for today, but also want to thank AWS for sponsoring the MiC Aspires course starting in April and every month for the rest of the year. AWS is going to be live with us, and our next session being April 14th, that they're going to talk about Amazon leadership principles. So, all of those folks out there that are interested in, those things that AWS values and the things that they should be looking at as they're now, trying or potentially trying to work with AWS or with Amazon, you'll get an inside scoop. So we're looking forward to that, but we're not going to discount our guest speaker today. Our guest speaker, of course, is Tanisha Martin, who is taking on the topic today of which certifications matter, right? And that's always a question because that's what I get within the confines of the role that I'm in as the CEO of Minorities in Cybersecurity, as well as MiC Talent Solutions. It's always which certifications mean the most? Which certifications this, which certification that? And I am not going to ruin this conversation for Tanisha, so I'm going to keep my opinions to myself until the end of this conversation. But we're going to let Tanisha take it over right now and have this conversation. I will thank you so much for being here, and I will bow out and go off camera.
Awesome. Thank you for having me. I'm very excited to come back and hang with you guys this week. So I will go ahead and get started. So the conversation today is which certifications matter. All right, so I am Tanisha Martin. I am a manager of data analytics at a Fortune company. Previously, I've been a security consultant for a couple of years and a government contracting consultant for 15 plus years. I have a few master's degrees in cybersecurity, digital forensics, IT, healthcare policy and management, and an MBA. And on the topic of certifications, I've got a bunch, I think maybe 15 or so in total. But of note to this conversation, I've got some Security Plus, project management professional, a couple of SAN certifications, a whole bunch of testing certifications, as well as some Linux and Microsoft certification, Microsoft certifications. So functionally, I'm a pen tester. And, I consider myself to be a hacker. So, a lot of my perspective will be from the red team or the offensive security space, but I will also give you an overview of what it looks like in other areas under cybersecurity as well. So the question is, which ones matter? And the answer really is that it depends. It depends specifically on your world domination plan, which is basically what your career aspiration, what your end goal is. So for me, my end goal is to be the chief information security officer for somebody's Fortune company. And I plan on getting there through, the field of penetration testing, making a foray into management. So, I mentioned that because your world domination plan, or what it is that you have planned for your career, I think is very important in determining which certifications that you're going to get. I think it's also important that your certifications that you get, just like the jobs that you get, that they tell a narrative of what it is that you're trying to do and how you're trying to define yourself in the cybersecurity space. So that story and that narrative is going to be different depending on, who you are and, what you are trying to do. I often tell people to, define themselves and, their personal brand. Spoiler alert, next week at Minorities in Cybersecurity Conference, I'll be hanging out with Tia and be talking about how to develop your own brand. But I think it's important that people who are especially coming up in cybersecurity, that they define themselves and their own personal brand in a way that is unique to them, and that you take a hold of that and are able to actually, define your own narrative as opposed to someone else defining that. So, what that looks like for people is basically, doing the certifications which help you to, tell the narrative that you want to be able to tell. So this is the certification landscape across cybersecurity. And if it looks absolutely crazy, it's because it absolutely is. When we're talking about cybersecurity certifications, there's a lot of different swim lanes or different areas in cybersecurity that you can be a part of. You have amazing lawyers like Mary, you've got pen testers like me, but then you've also got, threat hunters or people who are offensive security or risk managers, for example, or, people who, do things in marketing or, there's so many different job profiles if we're looking under the umbrella of cybersecurity that you can be in. So, really, like I said, those certifications that you decide to get should be able to help tell your story and, reflect your areas of expertise. So if we're looking at the certification landscape, the first swim lane that we have here is communication and network security. The next is identity access management, security architecture and engineering, which includes cloud and SysOps. Here, asset security, security and risk management. So these are all of our risk folks, security assessment and testing. So that is a space as well. And it kind of includes software testing but not so much pen testing, because pen testing is generally done in the security operations space. Software security itself. And then within the security operations space, we kind of have some blue swim lanes and some red swim lanes. And that is for basically red team, offensive security or red teaming, or defensive security and blue teaming. So if you look in the red and blue team categories, for example, within blue teams, we have, general security operations things. We've got some forensics-based things, and we've got incident handling things. And if we look at penetration testing, and on the red team side, we've got penetration testing and exploitation. So you'll see that there are a lot of certifications that are available underneath in each one of these swim lanes. And I think that what you will also see is that there are a lot of different certification bodies for a lot of these certifications. So the question of which certifications you should get or which ones you should trust, I think is probably enough for another whole different conversations, right? So we're assuming that all things created equal, you will need certifications like that are in the area that you're interested in specializing in. So, for example, if we look down here at the bottom, you'll see that there are certain certifications which span across a couple of different swim lanes. And some of those certifications are things like the Security Plus, the SSCP, the GSEC, which is sponsored by, which is brought by SANS. And then you'll see things like the ITIL Foundations, which is like service and service management. You'll see the Project Plus down here. In general, when we're talking about cybersecurity as a field, right, we'll start off with the foundation level certifications. So there are a lot of different companies that have foundation level certification. This is just a very small subset of them. ISC Squared has one that just came out recently. It's called Certified in Cybersecurity. It is more of a, I'd say, intro to cybersecurity, but it helps to define basically the basics that you need to know within cybersecurity. You've also got Security Plus. SANS has a couple of them. They have the GFACT, which is Foundational Cybersecurity Technologies, and the GSEC, which is Security Essential Certification. Certiproof has a Cybersecurity Foundation. NIST has a Cybersecurity Professional Foundation Certification Training, and ISACA has a Cybersecurity Practitioner Certification. So this, if you haven't started looking into this space, may not mean a whole lot to you at this point in your life. But you should know that when we're talking about the foundation level certifications, you'll see down here, there's a Certified in Cybersecurity. Security Plus spans a couple of different swim lanes here. GSEC, I mentioned, spans a bunch of things here as well. These certifications basically tell your future employer that you've got a foundation in cybersecurity. And that might be important, for example, if your background, let's say your education, your history, your work experience, for example, is in another industry. Like say, for example, if you're transitioning from like healthcare, or if you're transitioning from education and you're a teacher before, right? So these certifications basically tell future employers that you basically, have a foundation level of information in cybersecurity, right? So when we're talking about establishing your narrative, if your experience, let's say, especially if you're older and looking to transition into cybersecurity, not necessarily like young and beginning of your career, you may wish to say, hey, this is my effort to show you that I have at least the foundation in cybersecurity. And that's basically what those certifications do. Some of them are, I think if we're looking at like a price point, are a lot more reasonable. Certified in cybersecurity right now, I think is offered for free, or it's reduced price right now because they're trying to get 1 million people certified in cybersecurity. Security Plus is maybe like a couple $100s. If you're looking at the SANS course, these are thousands of dollars, right? They have scholarship academies for, different groups. But like when we're looking at the different certifications, trying to figure out which one might be best for you, for example, across the different foundation level ones might just be an issue of number one, what type of sector are you in? And then number two, like what the jobs that you're interested in applying for, what certifications do they look for? So you can generally, like if you do a search on like Indeed or like Glassdoor or any of the jobs, or if you look at the minorities in cybersecurity job board, for example, you can get a good idea of the types of certifications that people are looking for. And that can help to direct your path. So, I tell a lot of people that if you're going to, shoot for whatever your world domination plan is, that you basically start from that goal and work your way backwards, right? So, figure out the job before the people who are currently in that position, what kind of experience do they have? What type of certifications that they have? And then just keep stepping back until you get to basically where you're at in your career. And that can help to, establish a roadmap for, which certifications and what type of experience that you might need to get. So the other thing that might come into consideration, okay, Mary said that Minorities in Cybersecurity is offering this certified in cybersecurity cert, which is going to be free. So that's absolutely amazing. The other thing that might be, did I stop sharing my screen sharing? Let me try this again. Sorry.
Yes, while you figure that out, we will be, the conference is next week. So I haven't had an opportunity to breathe. However, we do have a relationship with ISC Squared, which we will be offering the CC cert for, and that will be free to folks that sign up.
Yay, that's exciting. All right, so depending on, like I was saying, which industry that you're interested in getting into. So for example, if you're looking in the private sector, they have a lot more flexibility. If you're looking in the government sector, for example, they have something that's called 8570 certifications, which is basically a list of approved certifications for you to be a government contractor, or for you to be a government employee. So, they have their list, and the Security Plus, for example, is on here, like for a IA2 level 2, which basically says if you're interested in being a technician, like an entry to mid-level person in cybersecurity, the basics that you need is a Security Plus, right? There are some other providers certifications that they allow, but it really depends on which level. So if you're interested, for example, in being a manager in the cybersecurity space for the government or a government contractor, you might need a CISSP, for example, or you might need a CISO, for example. right? So it really just depends on, like I said, the story that you're trying to craft, for what it is that you're trying to do. So when we look at, and the next slide was basically about red teaming certifications. So when we look at the red team certification space, you'll see that there are a lot of certifications here that are provided by a lot of different people, right? If we look on the 8570 certification, the only real red team certification that is on here right now is the certified ethical hacker. So like, for example, SANS has one that is the GPEN and the GWAP. Those are not on here yet. You'll see some of their incident handler ones that are on here, which we'll talk about when we get to the blue team side. But for the red team side specifically, there are a lot of different companies that offer certifications. So when we're looking at the roadmap, we have, like, for example, Altered Security has one, ISC Squared has some, CompTIA, eLearn Security, they've got the EJPT. As Offensive Security has like the OSCP, the OSCE, these ones up here at the top, which are more advanced level certifications. InfoSec Institute and the EC Council has the Certified Ethical Hacker. So I think for many of these, the higher the level up in the roadmap, I think the more difficult those certifications are, right? So for example, the Certified Ethical Hacker down here, it makes sense. This is like a multiple choice exam. You'll see that it's basically $1,200. But then we have some other certifications, like, for example, let's see, this is mobile application security. So like the OSCP here is $1,500. It is basically for, it's considered, I think, the standard for most people if you're looking for a job on the red team, if you're looking for like an advanced or like a senior level position. They sometimes want you to have it for mid-level, but there are other certifications. The Cyber Mentor just came out with a practical network penetration tester. It's probably been out for a couple of years now. Excuse me. And then we also have, for example, eLearn Security, which is /INE now. They've got a certified professional penetration tester, and their entry-level certification is the junior penetration tester. So, regardless of what you decide that you want to do, when you're moving, for example, in the red team space, there's certifications out here, and depending on like how you want to specialize, like, for example, if you want to do mobile security or mobile penetration testing, or if you want to do mainframe penetration testing, for example, there are a lot of different certifications that you can be able to take in order to be able to do that. So when we're talking about the blue team side, on the blue team side, there are not as many certifications as you can probably see here. Some of the most common ones are the Blue Team Level 1. They also have a Blue Team Level 2 certification. And then they have a higher level, which is Security Operations Manager. So those are a couple of options. SANS, I think, is coming out with a couple of Blue Team related certifications. They have an Incident Handler, which is the GCIH, I think it is. They've got the GFACT, which is basically a hybrid for red and blue team. It's also considered more foundational level. But then like there are incident handler specific ones. So there are also certifications that are specific to specific vendors. So for example, if you're using a specific technology, so like Cisco has their own blue team certification, and there's other vendors who do as well, right? So again, when you're looking at your plan for world domination and the job that you would like to have, it's important that you figure out, what the credentials are that you need in order to have that job, right? So that you can figure out, which ones make sense for you. If you're looking at a specific employer, so say, for example, at Amazon, you want to check out and see like what types of certifications people who actually work there have, and then look at their job postings as well and see what types of certifications that they have on their list. If you have a certification that demonstrates proficiency that's not on their list, that doesn't mean that they won't accept it. You can probably make the case during your interview that you've got that experience. But, you also might not get, past, to the hiring manager, if you don't have the specific one they're looking for, especially if the hiring manager, the hiring team, the talent acquisitions team doesn't have, the knowledge to know that there are other certifications out there in the landscape. So, you should just really, be intentional about the certifications that you're taking, especially since, you'll see that for some of these certifications, a lot of them have, a higher price point for the certifications. The other thing that you should, I think, take into consideration that some companies actually separate the cost of the training for the certification from the training itself. So for example, SANS, this says the certified forensics examiner is $949 for the exam, but then the training, whether you do that online or at their or in person, cost, in some cases, thousands of dollars. So, you just want to keep that in mind when you're trying to figure out, hey, this is the path that I want to take, so that you'll know, basically one, which certifications are important to you, and then, that you can make sure that you budget that into your life. The other thing that I want you to keep in consideration for is that there are a lot of organizations out here. So like, Mary said that they're offering the certified in cybersecurity. There are other organizations that are out here as well that also offer, either discounts or free certifications. So, I think it's important that you network and that you have like a group of people, that in the space so that you can, share information like that. Especially when, like, for example, I know CompTIA does beta exams very frequently, where they basically say, hey, we're releasing a new version of this particular certification, or might be a new certification overall. And that certification is available for $50 so if you take it within the next 2 months. So asterisks, for those beta exams, you will get your results for them, but it generally takes about 3 months for them because they have to wait until everybody has tested before they start releasing the results. And they have to kind of establish what the grading line is going to be for those certifications. So you're basically serving as like a sample body. But if you, whatever the line is that they establish, if you are above that line, you get the certification. So that is a plus. So, but again, that's one of those things that you can find out, if you're making sure that you keep your ear to the ground and you're involved very much so in the cybersecurity community. So the next group that you'll see is super big. Here is the security and risk management space, right? So there are a lot of people who are doing things in the cybersecurity and risk management space. And I think the reason for that is because realistically, when we're talking about risk, we're talking about something that spans across all of cybersecurity. So you'll see that, exams like the Search Security Plus, exams like the GSEC and the CAT, Advanced Security Practitioner from CompTIA, that they cover a large amount of the risk space. So some other folks that are in there, ISACA has some exams. Project Management Institute has some specific exams that are in this space. IBI, Microsoft, there's some vendor specific certifications as well. But I mean, overall, like, again, you would want to do the same thing, which is figure out, which certifications are accepted for which employers, which ones do they want to see, right? So that you're intentional about what it is. You'll also see in here somewhere is the CISSP, which is up here, and it spans basically across all of the things. And this is what's typically looked for management, and I think also risk people in general within the cybersecurity space. So, but again, asterisks, you need 5 years of demonstrated experience to be able to sit for this exam. They have an associate version of it, which is basically for anybody who has less than 5 years. But there's I'm studying for this right now. The book for this is like, it's super chunky. So there's a lot of information here. And the way that they think or the way that they tell you to think about the world might not be the same as the way that, you may have experienced it if you've been in the industry for a couple of years. So within the space, like I said, there's a couple of other certifications that are in here. You also have things like service management, which is the ITIL. They have a foundation level, and then they have like more of the advanced level certifications. You'll see a couple of CompTIA ones down here, like the Project Plus. The PMP, I think, is a big thing in this space as well. But it's not necessarily specific to cybersecurity, but there are definitely some overlaps in here. So, like, again, like when we're talking about, cybersecurity, we're talking about like, what it is that you are interested in doing, and then what certifications are going to make sense for you. So, if you're looking for a list, you will find that there are a bunch of lists online from different people, depending on, who it is that is sponsoring the list. I think the list that's on Wikipedia is pretty decent in terms of letting you know the different types of certifications out there. So you'll see that they have basically organized by the issuing organization over here. They'll have the types of certification, the abbreviations, and then the focus as well, right? So you'll see some of the ones that we didn't discuss, which are like the privacy related ones right here. You'll see that there are some cloud security ones. There's a lot of different certifications on here. And I think that the point that you should probably pay attention to if you're using this is the, not the validity duration, but specifically how many years of experience it takes you in order for you to get those certifications. The other thing that I think that's important for you to take a look at is how many people are actually in the certification bodies. So for example, CISSP has, 127,000 as of whatever this, people as of whatever this date is, right? Which is why it distinguishes cybersecurity folks from between each other, right? Considering the fact that we've got like literally millions of cybersecurity jobs that are open across the world. They want basically the management, it basically looks like the top 10% of folks within cybersecurity. So this is, I think, a good way to distinguish yourself once you, get the years under your belt. So, like I said, there's a lot of competition in the space, a lot of different certification bodies. And like I said, all other things being equal, I think it's important that you, look and see who you want to work for and see which ones that they care about per se, right? Because if you get one that is not as prevalent in the space that you're looking to enter in, it's basically like it doesn't count, right? When I got my first master's degree, so it was in healthcare policy and management. And then I went to a healthcare IT company and they said, hey, your healthcare master's doesn't count. We need you to have an IT master's, right? So again, you want to be, there's money cost associated with these things. You want to make sure that whatever certification that you're getting, that it makes sense for your career. The other thing that you, I think, need to consider when you're looking at the certifications, there's a cost to getting the certification, but there is also a cost to maintain the certification, right? And I think a lot of times people don't tell you that, especially when you're in your early career. I think that matters because, for example, like let's say you paid, $1,000 for a SAN certification. And you got it and you're like, okay, I'm good to go. For the most part, a lot of these certifications are not forever certifications. The SANS ones every, I think, 3 or 4 years, CompTIA ones every couple of years, whatever the case may be. You have to either do continuing education credits for them, or in some way, maintain them, in addition to the fact that you have to pay money for the most part to keep them going. So, I think that, once they expire, you can say, hey, I had them, but I don't know if that matters as much, when people are looking to see whether or not you currently have them and they're active. So that's just, something for you to consider. The other thing that I wanted to mention is, if you're looking at doing, we talked about consulting last 2 weeks ago, I think it was. If you're looking at doing something in the consulting space, whether that's government consulting or if that's, consulting outside of that, I think it's important for you to know which certifications that they care, that they care about. Because if you're in the government contracting space, you may have, for example, I mentioned I have the web application penetration testing certification from SANS, and I've got their penetration testing one as well. None of those are on here. So, what that basically means is that, that's great for me, but, it doesn't mean anything to a recruiter who is looking to bring people on and they need specific certifications. So, again, just, have a good understanding of the landscape, which I think you can, know a little bit more about that by getting a mentor. And then, again, do a little bit of research to figure out what it is that you need in order for that position. So I think that that's all that I have at this point. I'll open it up to questions.
Well, let I have to add my 2 cents here.
Yes, ma'am.
In regards to certification, and it's always strategic in knowing what you're doing as you're now embarking on this road, because you can go ahead and be the most certified person in the world if you want to. However, how is that going to help you get where you want to go? And Tanisha's right in that you have to have a strategy and a plan for what you're doing. So again, within MiC, we have our aspirers, which is this group, those of you that are looking to get in the space. Then we also support our builders, those that are in the space and they need to know something different. Once you have the job, the last class we talked about how to develop goals and objectives. And then we have our communicators course, which is people leadership. And as you go along in your career, you're going to find that you need different things. And as an aspirers group, and if you can go all the way back to our January session where we talked about knowing where to hunt and how to hunt for a cybersecurity role and what that looks like. And I will again point you to something. I'm not one for, recreating the wheel, right? You have cyberseek.org, which will break this all down for you, right? As well as looking at some of the certifications that they have. There's still 755,000 jobs in the United States in the cybersecurity space. This number has not changed, right? And it'll show you what those certifications look like. It'll also show you the pathway, what that entry level pathway looks like, and the skills and certifications needed for that entry level space. Again, you're not flying blind here. And I want you guys to understand that, you're not going all willy-nilly out there and feeling like, oh, well, I have nothing that's out there that's going to show me where I need to go and what I need to do. That's not the case. You go out there with a plan, and that plan has to include many of these things. And as you now look to say, okay, I'm an aspire, I want to be a penetration tester. You look at those certifications that are there. The beautiful thing about cybersecurity is you don't have to stay there. Once you gather those things and you're like, oh, well, pen testing is good, but I want to do something else. Then you just transition those skills to a different opportunity. I personally did not believe in taking a lot of certification. I'm a lawyer. Once you take the 2.5-day bar, all of this other stuff is it's just not right. But I do have my CISSP. I've had my CISSP since 2008. I have my CIPP. I've had which is the privacy professional certification. Those are the only 3 that I have. I am a leader. I've been in where I ran teams, so my teams have been more hands-on. They've taken. I developed curriculum for my groups and my teams that, depending upon where they were in my security operations center, what that looked like and how they became more of a subject matter expert in that space. I just don't want what happens is in this group, the Aspirers group, you say, oh, I want to do this. Oh, I need to get this cert. I've had lawyers tell me they're going to go out and get a technical certification. For what? What is the purpose of going out and getting a base level, entry level cybersecurity certification if you want to be on the risk management side? again, you can understand concepts without spending these are investments, right? Spending $1,000, $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000 on it. This it has to be something that you're pursuing for a purpose. Don't just pursue it because someone told you to or they felt like it was a good idea. And if it's not something that you're interested in doing, why in the world would you spend that money or make that investment in it? And it's not necessarily monetary, it's time investment too. You have to study, right? And you have to put forth that effort. So be strategic in how you are pursuing these certifications and what it is that you're trying to get accomplished. And on the back end, what that looks like. Just getting them because alphabet, A, B, C, D, just getting those certifications just because they're there, it's not necessarily going to help you land the job that you want. I mean, many people hold the CISSP as this certification that you can get, and all of a sudden it's going to open up all these opportunities. That's not the case. You still have to do the hard work. The certification may get you to the interview because you have it and you meet that qualification, but guess what? You still have to land that role, and that, whatever certification that you're pursuing should be in a particular position where it's going to help you get where you want to go. So that's my 2 cents. You want to, I'm going to leave it there because I don't want to, throw any of my potential sponsors under the bus in regards to these certifications. I think that a lot of times we put too much value on them without understanding where we're trying to go. So it's up to you as an individual to understand where you want to go, and then develop those skill sets associated in those certifications with where you want to go. So we have a couple of people out there. If you have a question, I think you still have the ability to raise your hand. If you have questions, you can definitely raise your hand. But that's a great conversation. We have a question. Let's see.
Hey, good afternoon, Mary. Good afternoon, Tanisha.
Good
Mary,
afternoon.
you mentioned that I just want to make sure I say this right. The CC cert will be free. Now, I'm a part of MiC's MiC Lead Builders. Is that only for aspirers, or does that apply to us as well, or just the overall MIC program?
Overall, MiC. So as you guys know, that well, you may or may not know, there's a conference next week here in Dallas, Texas, and Mary's focus has been specifically on the conference. Plus, my birthday's tomorrow, so I'm kind of iffy. However, what this looks like is starting in April, we'll start to announce the ability to take the CC cert. I think the test is going to be coming up in July, the way it's landing on the calendar, but we have to get all of those things. But everyone there's going to be an application process, of course, because if you know me a little bit, you know that there has to be some level of qualification for those that are going to be trying to take the cert. But yes, it will be something that we will be offering in a partnership with ISC Squared, who's actually going to be at the conference as well, because they are a sponsor.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of sponsors, I did not necessarily go into information about certifications for the cloud space, but AWS also has a bunch of cloud-based certifications. Some of them have specific cybersecurity specialty. Some of them are just overall cloud. So I'm looking at the list here, and I think there's probably maybe about 15 or so that are in different areas as well. So just keep in mind that, when you're looking at your space within cybersecurity, that, there are cloud-based certifications as well that just extend, your capabilities so that you can say, hey, I can do this both on-prem and then also, in the cloud if necessary.
Yeah, absolutely. And, as we continue to develop our relationships with many of our sponsors, we will, bring those, the education and the opportunities for those to be available to our member and our membership. So definitely the cloud space is something that, it's very, very, very important. There are a multitude of certifications out there that one can pursue, but again, it's always being strategic. It's always understanding what the move is, what that next move looked like. What is the plan 5-10 years down the line, and then making a decision today based on where you want to go and where you want to be. So anybody else with any questions? We got some folks out there. No raising of the hands.
So I just want to add, unless someone has any questions, that a lot of people online, especially on social media, will have a lot of hot takes about certifications. There may be people who tell you that you don't need any certifications, or there may be people who tell you you need all of the certifications. But I think that you need to, again, like, just make sure that whatever certifications you get, the ones that are on your resume specifically, that they tell a certain story, and that they're a part of the narrative that you want to put forth for yourself, right? One of my other favorite people besides Mary Cheney is Mary Galloway, and Mary Galloway has a literal like alphabet soup behind her name of certifications that she has. And, you know, for years I've looked at that and I'm like, yo, I'm trying to have like the whole alphabet after my name, right? But, you know, realistically, there's a cost to that. You know, like Mary mentioned, there's the time cost, there's the, you know, taking up space in your mind cost, you know, there's the, you know, making sure that you're maintaining all of these certifications and managing them year after year cost, right? So like, you know, even if you like, you know, change your direction or pivot at some point in your career and you get certifications that don't necessarily, you know, serve where it is that you're trying to go, it's okay to take those off of your resume or off of your LinkedIn and just have the ones on your resume or your LinkedIn that speak to the narrative that you are trying to put forth. Because, you know, it is, you know, dope to have, you know, all of the letters after your name, right? But, you know, realistically, only the ones that matter for your job are going to be the one that you necessarily need.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's not even for the job, it's for where you want to go. And again, that narrative and telling that story. My answer to certification is that Esquire behind the ESQ stands for attorney, licensed attorney. That trumps everything. I don't care. I don't care what you say. If you're not taking a 2.5-day exam, then I don't want to hear what you're talking about when it comes to certifications. But there's a cost there, and there's a cost to that license. There's a membership cost. There's a continuing legal education requirement for both. All of my certifications require, you know, there's an annual price tag as well as continuing education credit. So the thought process that I'm going to pursue something else outside of the ones that I already have, that's just not going to be the case. And so when you're sitting down and you're looking at your career, and it's okay, it's absolutely okay if you say I want to be in the security operations center for the rest of my life, and you start doing the blue team, red team, purple team, you start doing, you know, malware analysis, you start doing, you know, reverse engineering, you start doing all of these things, and then you get there and you're like, no, this is not what I want to do. It's okay. All of those things that you've accomplished thus far can be transitioned into something else. You just have to know what it is that you like to do. And again, Tanisha's right when people will tell you that you need everything and people will tell you you need nothing. Sometimes these barriers to entry, and as we wrote down, as we talked about last October in our baseline report, you know, people are getting interviews because they have the certifications, but they're not using the certification. So the question is, why are we adding this additional level of what I would call gatekeeping to these particular positions if you don't even really need the cert to be in the role? And we have a lot of that in our industry. We have a lot of oh, you need this cert in order to be successful, but not necessarily what you'll be doing on the day-to-day. So to get the interview, you may have this, but then you get there and you don't use it. And then the question becomes, well, do they really need it? And why was that on the application that's being needed? So Rico, I apologize. I did see that your hand was raised. I'm going to allow you to talk just in case you still have that question.
No, I was actually able to Google it, but I guess I can ask it for the rest of the group. So I'm looking at getting the Security Plus SCY 0601. any idea what the reoccurring costs would be on that?
I do. So we actually have a partnership with I run an organization called Black Girls Hack, and we've got a partnership with CompTIA, which is open to everybody. We've got a discount, so we can get you half off of the initial cost. So I think if you go to their website, it's like maybe $400 or $500 or something like that. And I think we've got it for like two something, or maybe $300, right? So that's number one. The repetitive cost, I think it's $150, I think, and it gets you 3 years, something like that. But you just keep in mind that if you have other certifications that are also by CompTIA, that there is a cost for each one of those certifications, not to mention the continuing education requirements for that. So you've got to do a certain number of hours per year or over the course of a cycle in order to maintain that.
So, and by a certain amount of hours, are you saying like there's going to be like a class that's hosted or something like that? Or
no, it's you
how do I put these hours on?
You've got there's a system basically that you have on their website where you maintain your continuing education credits. So basically, like, let's say if you go to Minorities in Cybersecurity Conference next week and you're attending something that has like CEUs associated with it, right? You would say, hey, I attended Minorities in Cybersecurity. This was, X number of hours worth of, content. You put it in there and you say, hey, which domain or which, whatever it matches up with. And then, they basically accept it. And then, there's a, X number, let's call it 10% chance that you'll get audited. And then they'll be like, hey, show me something, or they'll call somebody. But for the most part, it's like, hey, you just have to show that you've attended. But a lot of conferences and education programs tie CEUs to them so that you could basically use those for your recertification purposes. And you can a lot of times use, like, if you've got multiple certifications, so like I've got like a whole bunch of them, like all of my security related trainings and all of the things that I do, basically they could be used towards my continuing education requirements for that certification. If you add to the body of work. So for example, project management professionals still say, hey, if you, teach something in a space, or if you do something in a space, or if you, do a conference or something like that, that all that stuff counts towards, that. So your responsibility is over the course of your 3-year period, to put in your, and maybe that looks like 60 hours over 3 years worth of credits into the system. And, they verify them or not, if they decide to, and then you get another 3 years. And if you let it expire, then you either have to retake the test, or, different companies make you go through different hoops depending on if you let it expire. So.
Okay. Question around that.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, no. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off, Mary, please.
No, I was just going to say, and they go cross certification. So I'm a lawyer, I'm a CISSP, and I'm a CIPP. A lot of the privacy work that I do, I can also get legal credits for, continuing education credits for, or if I'm speaking next week 4 different times, I guess I can claim those 4 hours as education credits for my CISSP. Not privacy related, but potentially legally related, depending upon the topic of conversation. So if I do one thing, it could meet two of my certification requirements. So it's not like you're doing 60 hours per 6 certifications. A lot of those can be translated across those particular certifications to meet those requirements.
Okay. And one quick question for you, Mary. So I'm actually going to be in Texas April 15th through the 21st. Are there any, initiatives that I could possibly attend during that time?
The conference is March the 28th through the 30th, sir. If you just want to connect, I'll probably be available. More than likely, if you're going to be in the Dallas area, we could probably connect for lunch or something like that. But there aren't anything that's going to be local. That I think there's a CISO dinner, but that's completely irrelevant to this conversation. But if at that particular point, if there's something that you want to connect about, just let me know. We can do that offline. Yes, but there's no initiative for minorities in cybersecurity, that's going to be in person.
Okay.
All
Understood.
our eggs is next week. Y'all don't understand
And I wish I had
how
known. I
hard
would have
I've
flew out
worked.
earlier.
I'm flying out tomorrow, so I will be there
There you
probably by like
go.
10 tomorrow night. Alejandro has a question in the chat. I see.
Okay, does he? Okay, hold on.
This might be, I don't know if you have master's, Mary.
That's
Okay.
for you. No, I have my bachelor's and I have
Your JD.
my Esquire. My JD trumps all of that. Nope, I'm a doctor.
So the question is, how do you feel about your master's program in comparison to certifications? Would you do a master's or just go and get all the letters after your name? Honestly, if I had to do all over again, I would probably just go get letters after my name. And let me tell you why. Master's degrees are specializations into specific topics. So, in each time that you do a master's degree, let's say it's maybe a year to 3 years of, study in that specific specialization. There's the financial cost, there's the time-based cost. But I think that the reason why I kept going back to school is because the thing that was missing for me was the hands-on piece for jobs that I was interested in pursuing. And when I did my master's in cybersecurity, it was very general. It talked about cybersecurity as an umbrella in terms of policies and procedures. It didn't necessarily talk about like hands-on keyboard skills. I went and did another master's in digital forensics, same type of deal. It wasn't very hands-on keyboard skills. And so for me, unless you go to a specialized program, so, depending on, there are some places that have like hands-on keyboards types training curriculums. But for the most part, they talk about, risk and privacy and overarching themes within the cybersecurity. What I really needed, what I was really looking for was hands-on keyboard skills, which I've been able to get myself. But, how do you demonstrate that to an employer? You do that by getting, certifications that are focused specifically in those areas. So for example, my GWAP, which is like web application penetration tester, says that I've got, specialized experience in web application penetration testing. And I've got one for penetration testing, and I'm planning on getting one in mobile penetration testing as well. Right. So for me, that, when the minimum bar for most employers is that you have a bachelor's degree, most companies do not require that you also have a master's degree. I literally come from, a background where, just being a Black woman, my parents said that you had to basically have a master's degree just to basically be at the same, level as some of your peers that do not, have a certain level of privilege, right? So, that's why I got my first master's degree. But, all of the ones after that, I don't think necessarily matter to me. So if I had it all to do over again, I would definitely do the certifications, because if you look at at least the price point, even the time consideration for a master's degrees versus the certifications, it's a lot less with the certifications, not to mention the fact that you don't have to write like whole theses and research papers and argue anything, and all of those things as well. Like I never want to see another 200-page paper in my entire life, honestly. Like I said,
I would say, yeah, no, I mean, it all depends on where you want to go. Now, I was a professor. I was a professor at the University of Cincinnati for several years, and I taught an undergraduate course in cybersecurity topics and cybersecurity. And it just depends on where you want to go and how you want to get there. I think that, if your goal is to be in corporate America and do the corporate route, I've had individuals that I've worked for that didn't even have a bachelor's degree, right? And so that I've actually worked for. You heard me right. And so it just depends on what you're trying to get accomplished. I skipped the master's and went to my JD and received my law degree just because, and became a lawyer just because that's what I wanted to do for my career. I will tell you 100%, and I will scream it out the rafters to anybody who will listen, that law degree has never done me wrong. I'm always happy I went and got that law degree and that I'm a licensed attorney. I honestly, that is one of the best things that I've ever done for myself, even though I made my professional living in cybersecurity, incident response, security operations center, CISO type of work. Just the knowledge and understanding of why all of this is done, the business aspect of things, why, contractually things are, even with the privacy stuff that's going on now, you can never, ever, ever, ever take away what they taught me how to do and what I learned in law school. So it was worth it. That bill has been paid off. It's been paid off for years and years and years now. So, I mean, and it's paying dividends, and it continues. As the CEO of Minorities in Cybersecurity, I don't need a lawyer to go out and look at my contracts. Check that out. I can look at my own contracts. She's like, no. Or I can have Alejandro sign a non-disclosure agreement. He always has a problem with the NDA that I had him sign. So all that to be said, it all depends on where you want to go and what you want to do. And there's nothing that I would say that in my past that I've done that I regret. So
y'all hear Mary telling me to go get a JD? I think Alejandro said the same thing in the chat. What I heard was, Tanisha, you need to go ahead and go to law school. Like, because like the flex. But I will say that if you're interested in getting a job in the C-suite, they generally want you to have, an MBA. Like, so Mary could obviously do that because, a JD obviously trumps, in anything, right? So, but, without that, if you're interested in going into the executive leadership, especially, in the commercial sector, you probably need a master's at that point. But, there are definitely a lot of CEOs and, C-level people who don't have even, so much as a bachelor's degree. So it's possible, but, if you are a minority, you might need to go, I think, a little bit above and beyond what some of the other folks are doing, just so you can, make it happen.
And I honestly think you need to understand business. I think the problem with relying so heavily upon certifications is that we get isolated in our approach and our thinking. And the C-suite, especially a CISO, is a business thinker, it is a business leader, and you have to understand and be able to relate what you do and what your team does every single day to how it impacts the business. I've always said that from the very beginning, that we are out here in this space doing things, but not able to talk about the business of information security or cybersecurity. It is a business, and you have to go big for your budget. You have to go do all of these different things in this space that if you are strictly a technologist, you may miss, right? And so that business aspect and understanding what that means, there's absolutely nothing that's the best thing you can do for yourself, especially if you're trying to get to a senior manager, director, C-level role. You have to understand it, and you have to be able to articulate it. And gone are the times, and especially for minorities at times, gone are the times that where you can be a technologist and get into the C-suite. You can be an individual contributor, I believe, but that CISO, that C-level position, you have to understand business. And we have had a wonderful conversation. We are surprisingly right at 5 o'clock.
I was about to say, somebody
5 o'clock Central.
Somebody just said that there's some questions on YouTube. I was actually just going to go see what they are. We did not cover.
There might be. You're gonna have to turn that down. I'm gonna get some feedback from the YouTube. I can. No, I don't want to stop the live stream. Can you pull it up to see? Mute yourself and see if you can pull it up and see if you, because I was hearing myself.
Okay. Yeah. So it says, hi, what are some of the example roles for people who like puzzles? Silly question, but I'm trying to figure out a path for me. I'd say capture the flag is a good thing. The other thing I would say is like cryptography. That's a good path that always needs people as well. And, there is big business in like capture competitive, like cybersecurity sporting as well. There's a lot of money in there. It's like if you go to ctftime, I think .org, there is a list of like the top capture the flag players, and like their whole existence is, answering questions specifically about, cybersecurity, solving, puzzles basically. So.
And that's what we do ultimately in our space. We solve problems. And if you have a curiosity, I would hire, and I've hired for curiosity hands down more than I hired for anything else, because people can want to be in cybersecurity and they want to be in cybersecurity for the money. Yes, absolutely. You can get paid. You can get paid six figures if you're good at what you do, because you got to be good at what you do, and you have to follow your passion. So if your passion is to solve problems, I love people like that. That means you're hungry. That means you're not going to go to, well, you probably not sleeping well, but that means you're probably going to try to resolve this issue. And that hunger is something that is going to separate you from someone that's just doing it for the money, so to speak. So I think was that the only question on YouTube that we had?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Well, happy Friday. Happy birthday Eve to Mary.
Happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you. I will see a lot of you. I'm so looking forward to seeing a lot of you next week. And for those of you that are out there on our YouTube, please, as you're out there asking questions, follow us, definitely subscribe to the channel. We do this every other Friday. Like I said, our next upcoming talk, AWS is on the mic, and they're going to be talking about AWS principles and starting to educate you guys on what it really means to work in for AWS. So great having you. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Thank you so much, Tanisha. I'll see you next week, dear.
Yes, ma'am. Bye.
All right, bye-bye.